now have voice, not need to be heard. Maybe we are not going to give you a pulpit again, but I feel like, even at home, sometimes my children, they can do something. I have to sit with them. When they ask me question, difficult question, I have to reason with them, come together in agreement or pray, with each other. But sometimes people, they will say they are concerned. We feel like it doesn't matter, but it matters to them. Imagine your child is coming to you, saying her concern, but you blush it, you don't even maybe reply. I feel like we need to be real, because this is a real life that we are living.
Thank you all. No, I'll give you another point later. Okay, thanks. I need to close on this one. Thank you very much for all your contributions. Yes, it's true. We have different opinions on this kind of topic. But as we go deep into my presentation, we might find some resolution in it. So I will leave you with your thoughts right now, and let me go to my next slide, and I will come back to your points later on. So there are also barriers to accessing services. Things like language, culture, finances, fear of judgment, and waiting lists, and lack of access to public funds can make people not to be able to access the right service for them. The trauma-informed church will become acquainted with local resources designed to help traumatized people. What are those resources that are within us? What are those resources? Can people access these resources? We need to know the resources, because when people are coming to us to tell us what they have been traumatized of, we should be able to send them to these services. Services like the GP, services like home office, social work, teachers, all of those kind of services. We need to be able to know them so that we can send people so they can get professional help. It can also facilitate getting professional help and resources. So another discussion, it will be, what can our church do to help people when they face these barriers to accessing services? Things like language. We come from a very diverse community where I speak my language, I don't speak your language. But when I want to access the service, how can we help the people? What about culture? Does it play into it? What about finances? Some people, they've got no benefits. They come to the UK and they are under the asylum system. How can they access services? What about the waiting list? I know here in the UK, if somebody will come to me to tell me, Miriam, I'm traumatized, and I refer them to the GP, of which the GP will send a referral to therapeutic services, their waiting list is about 6 months or so. But how can they get that immediate help that they will require? So what other things can we help people when they're facing barriers? Thank you to everyone. Things like language, culture, finances, what we have.
Language-wise, these days we are blessed because we've got lots of resources, even online, to translate, to understand what you want to find out about. And also, in the case of our church here in Glasgow, we are blessed to have so many diverse languages. If someone has got a barrier in one kind of a language, we are so many of here, you can refer to them that here's somebody from Malawi, maybe they can help you to understand better. But Google Translate has got those facilities.
I think there are so much in this particular topic. We are only just talking on the surface here. When we are talking about here, there are loads. When you're talking about language, you know, you're right, we speak different language, but we interpret the different languages as well. So we may not get the meaning right in what people are understanding or what people are saying. When we are talking about, of course, culture, similarly, there are many things happening in different ways. And how do we, as a church, I'm talking as a church family here, really looking people who are in difficult needs and are coming to us. How do we really listen to them and interpret what they are saying to look at their real need and can make some steps to guide them step by step to get the right support and the right guidance where they can realize, yes, there's a church, there's a God there who has guided me. There is so much in there. That's, I'm just bringing a few little things, and I'm not saying that as a theorist neither, you know. And then, of course, similarly, finance, we all know if we don't have the finance, that can be very, obviously, difficult in moving forward. And what about this fear of judgment? You know how many times people say one thing and then next, what happened? People are just obviously put their fingers on either one is terrible, don't understand, this is bad, this, that, and that, but we don't know what's happening in somebody's life, do we? And we can be making the wrong judgment. There are plenty in there to really look, and that can be taking years to really develop the understanding and the talents.
Thank you very much, Sister Claudette, for your contribution.
If we wait on to take years, then we'll go nowhere. What we need to have in the church, a directory. Phone up the local authorities and we speak to them and say, look, we are a diverse church. What can you offer us for an individual? Like language. Give us a number so that we can contact the local authority and say, look, we have somebody here who speaks French, and we have nobody to translate. They then will give us a translator, Spanish, or one of the other diverse languages. So we should have a directory, not talk over our heads. Have a directory here. Somebody is sexually abused, we need to have that. Counselors, who are the counselors that we can call on? The local authority have a list of counselors. So they would make that known to us, the counselors, the telephone numbers, what area they are counseling in, so that we have these within our church so that we can access those. Waiting list is a long time. I have to wait for 1 year for intervention for my eye. The optician said, you know, the waiting list is a year. What about somebody else who just come? They will probably have to wait 2 and 3 years. I had to wait over 5 years for audiometry examination. Over 5 years. The woman said, you know, you've been waiting for 5 years. Yes. So we have to find out what agencies there are, get a hold of their phone numbers, have a directory in the church.
That's a very good contribution, Sister Befon. I'll take upon it, Brother Ross.
I think she has
summed it all up.
now.
Okay, that's good.
Because we have to bring them
Yes.
home
All right.
and us going around the same.
Yes. Thank you so much all for your contributions. I don't have time. Just 30 seconds. 30 seconds. I'm counting. Sister Connie.
We have it, but because the church members, we are not prepared to help, especially See, when it comes to communion, we collect money, and that money goes into a fund for helping church members in need. That now, I don't think we have even much money there, because we have stopped doing that correction, which we have. Because when people comes for financial this thing, anybody who comes initially, all of them are in financial difficulties. And the church have to help. But the church, because we don't have money in it, that's why the church is not happening. Most of you can be a witness or give testimony that the church was able to help when we were in a good financial this thing.
Thank you all for your all contributions. They are really very valid, and they can make life-changing decisions on somebody else's life. So, going on number 3, listen effectively. The trauma-informed church knows the key component of allowing wounded people to inform members is through active and effective listening. They will hear people's stories as told and not as they would like stories to be. This is not easy. What are some other barriers that members of the church may face when listening? Okay.
Judgmental. If we don't really look and don't take our
30 seconds.
yeah, it's just really be looking at, not be judgmental in what we hear once and sing and make it whatever, because we just don't know in depth what the person is going on. And that's where patience is important. Praying is important, to ask God to enlighten us, to be able to get really the need of that person and step by step guide that person.
Not to lose focus on what we are really talking about. We are still on the topic of abuse. Elder Bivon, you hold that for a minute. So, effective listening, barriers to effective listening is societal views about abuse, values of the listener, personal views of the listener's views of the abuser, lecturing or giving advice, denying other people's feelings. No. Effective listening is giving time to listen, listening with empathy, listening without judgment, giving time to listen. This is really a very good point. Sometimes when people are coming to us, they're talking to us about something that is really, really disturbing to them. We don't normally listen. All we are trying to do is to jump into giving them an advice, but sometimes people don't need the advice. In times like this, sometimes it's better just to keep quiet. The silence itself will talk. But if we give them advice, we might give them advice that is not really what they want. And also, listening with empathy. We should be able to empathize with one another. Whatever somebody is feeling, we should be putting ourselves in their shoes.
And I want to add, in listening there, is to say when you have not understood the utterance of the person who is traumatized or who is asking question, you should gently say, am I hearing you saying this, to confirm whether you are in the same wavelength? Because there is always an assumption for those who are good listeners to say, or who are good orators, to say, as long as something has come out of my mouth, that means the other person understands what's going on in my mind. So it's a good thing to sort of verify the doubts of the conversations.
Thank you so much. Listening as well without judgment. We should not be able to judge each other. If somebody is coming to us and talk to us, we should be able just to talk to them without judging them. The reason why we are not judging is we were not given that that feeling to judge others. We are not supposed to judge. Instead, we should listen, and listen with empathy, and listen to give them good advice so that they can be helped. Again, yes. Okay. 20 minutes. Okay.
To what you're saying.
Okay.
So I do not have to say, oh, so you mean such and such. No. As counselors, one of the first requirements we are told, ask the person, so what do you mean? Could you explain it for me? And don't say, oh, well, we can do this for you. No. What would you like me to do? Ask the person, turn the question back to the person and say, what would you like me to do? Oh, you know, you stated such and such. I really do not understand. Could you explain to me what you want? Instead of saying, well, I think you should do this, I think you should do that. No, 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 no. That is not counseling at all. You have to listen to what they're saying and ask them, because you may want to help them by giving them money, right? Finance, but that is not what they want. They want something else.
Thank you so much, Sister Bevan. James chapter 1, verse 19 really summed this effective listening well. James is telling us that we should be swift to hear. This is identifying traumatized person and taking the time to listen with empathy and compassion. It is also maintaining that confidentiality that we have talked about. Slow to speak is setting aside personal and societal values and views that may interfere with the ability to focus on the victim. It is listening to discover the person's hearts, needs, fears, and expectations. Slow to wrath is listening without prejudice, refraining from judgment. Sorry. No, I'll give it to you because you haven't contributed.
And it's okay.
Yes.
This time
No,
is
it's
fine.
okay. It's all right. You still have 30 seconds.
Okay, that's fine. I was just going to say, I think, it's a very valid point in terms of listening, But in listening as well, I think, people need to understand their limits, because there's some trauma which people have gone through, which is quite complex, And if you just, with your untrained ear, try to sort of, just listen or just tell me what happened, I think, sometimes you can do more damage than good, So I think it's just about understanding your limits, when you're trying to sort of, support someone by listening to some complex stories.
Thank you so much, Brother Rodney. And of course, we still have Proverbs 25, verse 11. It says, a word faithfully spoken is like apples of gold and pictures of silver. This text shows us the value of appropriately said words. We need to understand when it is appropriate to say something, just like Brother Rodney is saying, and when it is better just to be silent and to listen and giving our full attention to people to tell us their story in their own terms. Okay, so this is quite sensitive. We have touched a bit of it, but I'll still go for it because it is very essential that we are keeping confidentiality in the church. Listening with the capacity to listen without prejudice, listening without your own story overwhelming you, listening with a desire to help, listening without gossiping and betraying and trust of the person. Listeners must have the capacity to listen. Having a capacity to listen means listening with confidentiality. It means listening without prejudice. It means listening without your own story overwhelming you, which means being able to hear their story without the interference and the distraction of your own story. So, in what ways can you help create a safe space in our church for people who have experienced abuse? The floor is open, and it's only just a minute if I can have some contributions. In a safe space, there is empathy and vulnerability. Having trained listeners could also help make people feel safe enough to share. Confidentiality is a key component for creating safe space. What do you think, Elder Bevan?
Question, in what ways can you help create safe space in your church for people who experience abuse? All right. Now, abuse takes the form of different scenarios: physical, emotional, financial, and so on. So you have to provide the space according to the abuse that that person is receiving. First of all, you have to provide a safe environment. Take the person out from the main church into the pastor's office where it is not too cold, where it is clean, where it is aerated, where it is comfortable for them, so that they can express themselves. And you must not be hurried. Oh, we only have 10 minutes. No, you rush on the person. Take time. And if you can't spare the time, say, well, you know, I am rushed today, but on Monday, I can sit with you and I can listen. Instead of rush. When you are rushing, you're not hearing exactly what the person is saying. When you are rushing, you want them to finish so quickly. And also you have to look at what they're saying. Maybe you have gone through the same experience. Having gone through the same experience overshadow what the individual is telling you. You don't see it clearly. You see it from your own perspective. So you have to devoid yourself of that. You know, and try to comfort the person. Try to love them. And never tell them what to do. Ask them, what can we do for you? What can I do for you? How do you see yourself? How do you evaluate the situation?
Thank you very much. At that slide, I have come to the conclusion. Sorry. We have in the church, but we have discussed this. She has said it. Yes, you just want more?
I just have a question, and I think that's for everyone here. Just to talk in practical terms, so it's not just a theory. Rodi said something that the listener should be a trained listener, and I can see here on the slide. In this church, if one was to have an issue and want to speak to somebody, who would be that trained listener? Because clearly it's not everybody who should be listening to somebody's problem. And it could be an elder, but an elder might not be trained to answer, help, guide. So who is the person, before you conclude, should we go to in this church? Thank you.
Sister Scar, there is a question here. Who is that person that people should go to when they want to discuss things in regards to confidentiality?
It's very difficult, but in this church, we have got a pastor. We've got a pastor. If you think you can't approach a pastor, in this church, I think you can have people that you trust. If you trust anyone, you can approach anyone. I think anyone can have that capacity if you trust them. And as I say, as it has been said, that maybe the elders, to me, those elders are ordained. You can have one of them that you trust, you go to them. People that we trust can always be there to help us.
Interest coordinators have to be versatile, and they are the ones who would direct our interests to say, if I'm lost and I need a campus, I go to the interest coordinator in an organization. I think this portfolio is, if it's not used for that, it's undervalued.
Sister Connie, you said you wanted to add more on confidentiality.
I think all of us can do that. But as I have seen, you would tell somebody in confidence that you are worried about something. The next minute, it had been possible, or it had been good to you to get the mic and just announce it in the church. That one, we have to be very careful. We need to be very careful. So this one go to all the elders and to all the head departments and everybody. Even at work, you know that without that confidentiality, you can be sacked. I know some of these work department, for example, where I was working, if that one is the main key in where I was working, without that, you can lose your job. Without that, it's death and life with that one at work. And we have to be very careful. We have to be very, very careful. For example, if Scar brought a prescription and it was done, then the husband come, oh, what is it for? We are not allowed to do that. We are not allowed to do that. You know, what is it for, blah, blah, blah. But all that you can help the husband is to say that, can you speak to your wife? What did he tell the doctor to give that? It's the same thing in the church here. We have to practice that. We lack that.
Actually, I was saying earlier on, you talk about that team. You say it's a trauma team, the board team. So that team, they should be able to identify the people the church can be, directed to, because that team should have a bit of training, like basic training, and then I believe they can be able to direct us as a church where we can,
Yes, you have just answered yourself the question. The answer is transparency should be existing between members and the board members. Leaders should be honest and trustworthy. Expectations should be made clear. Feelings are welcomed and people are listened. So the trauma-informed church will also create support groups. survivors of sexual abuse, divorce recovery, or grief support. If you were to pick from groups to run as a church community ministry for traumatized people, which would it be and why? And what other support groups might be helpful? Survivors of sexual abuse, divorce recovery, or grief support.
For the the previous slide, with how the church can behave to help somebody who is traumatized. I wanted to mention that sometimes the people who have trauma need somebody to listen, because I may feel isolated, like in prison. I need somebody to listen carefully. They need somebody to listen carefully, not a questioning, not a comment, until that person speak all that is in her heart and he can feel relieved. He doesn't even sometimes need your comment. So develop an attitude of listening without commenting, and what you have listened to, you just ask, what do you want me to do for you? Or what kind of help you are looking from me? He can ask you, maybe pray for her, because sometimes the people who want people to listen to them, they need to pray for them as they want. They know the situation he's going through. He doesn't want you to pass it over.
Thank you very much, Elder Philomena, sorry. In conclusion, it is through effective listening and support that we become loving, caring friends to wounded people. Today, we have seen that effective listening and support groups are excellent ways for church members to help people suffering from trauma. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for your contributions. I know we were maybe supposed to start and maybe to extend some sessions on it, but we might plan for some future events maybe towards the end of the year, so that we can finish this discussion. If some of you feel like maybe you haven't got a proper answer yet, just wait for that time when we plan some other future sessions of the women's ministry. So thank you very much. I am your presenter, Miriam Kaswanjete. Thank you, yes. Sorry? Yes, one gentleman. I will take that from you. Okay.
No, I was looking at all the issues there, and most of it is kind of slant towards female. So I was wondering what role the male can play in that situation. I know male do suffer some of those, but I think most of it, you find it, slant towards the female. Would a female come to a male for support and stuff like that? Is that possible? Yes. Rodney? Yes.
This one is not mainly for female.
No, the trauma-informed church, it's both you and us. This is not just us as women. This is, you are playing a part in this as well. How can we create that trauma-informed church in Glasgow? We need to change things the way how we used to do them, but now we need to move forward so that we can do things better, so that we can help those who are wounded and those who are traumatized. Yes. Yes.
You know,
some culture, the father would be abusing the children and so on, and they cover up everything. And don't realize the scar, the effect it leaves on these children.
Yes.
These children then go unmarried, and you have
To be honest, I should answer that for you. Both men and women, they can be perpetrators. It's not just men, but it's women also. We've seen lots and lots, we've heard lots of stories from men who are living in domestic abuse. But they can't leave because sometimes they are trapped, they are children, they've been married for so long, they can't just leave. They need to stay, but they still stay in those kind of situations.
I had a
I will help you. You have to get.
I had a male charge nurse, and he was living with this female domestic, and she was very promiscuous. Sometimes you can't find her because they pick her up for soliciting on the street and have her in jail. And you are so pressed in the morning for staff. And where is the charge nurse? He comes in, or you see all his face scratch. She is shorter. She climbs on a chair, and she bells him left, right, and center. So one day, I said, what suppose now, while she beating you, your feet just accidentally pull the chair down and she falls. Yes. She would belt him left, he scratched, bruised, and so on. And many times we think, well, it's women suffer. That is an old sage. But men suffer as much as women. Sexual abuse, men suffer the same sexual abuse. Women sexually abusing male. Yes, yes. So we have to be very well equipped. We have to be open. And we have to be confidential in what people say to us. And we have to be knowledgeable, because if we don't have the knowledge, we don't have the experience, how can we help them?
It's only that we're conniving with the elder people. But what I want to add is to say, is the male ego, which is pandemic in our in our sex dynamics, which is men don't feel free to talk about it. So women, they are easy. They can facially express them. Men will hold a cultural stand to say, I'm a man, I have to stay with it. So I'm like, these programs will help us to be enlightened when we put all of these programs in our calendar, and they have also spiritual support from that base. I think I'm happy with the program today because it was fusing in what we are living in and what we expect, because our intellects are the ones which will coin these answers and take advice from maybe some law in the land to say this is how we deal with it. And I'm quite impressed the way it was presented. Thank you. Let's keep it up.
But you know, the same thing he talks about, this male ego, that is why we find now, statistically, it was done, that a large number of male African and Afro-Caribbean, they have prostate cancer because they don't go to the doctors. So ladies who have their husband insist, and if they don't want to go, drag them. They need to go. And yes, that is good abuse. That is good abuse. You know, and so many of them are dying of this. The time they go to the doctor, it's too late. So the parents need to sit and talk with the children. Male and female, sit when you eat in, talk. Let them open to you and you open to them and support them.
Thank you so much. At this point, I would like church to tell you that we've been with Brother Emmanuel for so long, and he has just told us that he will be leaving next week to go back to Nigeria. Ghana, sorry, yes, yeah, Ghana, yes. He knows where he's coming from anyway. Why you wanting to eat me? Yeah, so we would like to give a token of appreciation for what Brother Emmanuel has been doing to Glasgow Church. He's done so much. He's been with us all through. So thank you, Brother Emmanuel. The church is presenting this to you. Yes, you should come and get it. Please.
Give something finally, but somebody who is going for holidays and come back. When I was going, didn't give
Oh. I am just the messenger.
Okay.
Don't. Yes, I am just a messenger, but this has already been done. So it's, yes. You need. Yes. Can you give us a closing song, please, Brother Emmanuel? Thank you so much. Anything.
Whatever.
Anything.
Say goodbye.
I'll miss you. Are you coming? Are you coming back?
No, don't question him too much. Don't question him.
Where is Pastor? I want you to come and play the organ for us. Happy Sabbath. In fact, thank you so much for the gift. I never thought. It has been a surprise to me. And I say that God richly bless you. And every pocket is coming from. I thank you once again for the opportunity that you have given me. In fact, when I came here, I came as an empty being, have no one apart from God. But I came to meet a family, and through them, they have. You've proven to me that you really love me, no matter who I am. And I really, really, really appreciate. I always say that I have nothing to give than to say that God continue to bless each and every one. If I try to mention name, it will cost a lot. And the church has done a lot for me, honestly. Yeah, in times of very, very, very difficulty. And even when